Hi guys, welcome back to episode 4 of the Beta Breeding Breakdown. And in this episode, we're going to cover live food. I'm Shishi, and you are of course at the Bubble Nest. So why live foods? It's fairly simple, and that is beta are predators. As a baby, they don't know that a pellet is going to keep them alive. So you absolutely have to supply them with live foods at different stages of their development in order to give them enough nourishment to grow. The stages of live foods vary. If you've bred betas before, you'll know how incredibly tiny they are when they hatch. As soon as about 2 days after they've hatched, they'll already be looking for something else to eat, and it's usually in the form of infusoria. What is infusoria? Infusoria is a microorganism that is found in the waters, and you can actually culture infusoria. There are a couple of different methods in order to culture it, or you can also buy in a pet. It is called liquefry. You can find it on Amazon, and I think it's about $13 or $14, give or take. And what that does is when your beta have spawned, you drop a couple of drops into the water, and it actually promotes infusoria to grow into the tank. And then when the babies hatch, you drop another 2 drops in. And by that point, it should start culturing the infusoria, and it's putting in the microorganisms in the water that actually are essential for the first few days after hatching. After a couple of days, you can actually start introducing vinegar eels. And again, vinegar eels are extremely tiny little worms. They're not actually eels. And the best thing about them is you'll notice that when your fry hatch, a lot of them, after they become free swimming, on the surface of the water, which is perfect for these vinegar eels, because the vinegar eels actually swim to the surface of the water and they hover around there for about a day or 2. So the beta fry can actually eat them and doesn't have to swim and hunt for them because they stay at the surface with the beta fry, which is why they're absolutely perfect for the first few days after hatching. After that, banana worms and microworms. I use banana worms, but I maintain my tanks ridiculously. Anyone that's bred beta before will understand that cleaning your beta fry tanks, when your fry are so tiny you can barely see them, is a really daunting task. You have to keep the bottom of the glass clean, especially when you're using microworms and banana worms, because these guys will sit on the bottom of the tank. They will sink to the bottom, and that's where they will stay, and when they're not eaten, they start to rot. Now when they begin rotting, what can happen is the baby beta will be sitting on the bottom of the tank where the rotting food is. It will actually burn off the ventral fin. Microworms and banana worms are renowned for burning off the ventral fins, and you'll end up with an adult without any ventral fins if you do not keep up on your tank maintenance and your fry tank maintenance. And to be honest with you, if you're not prepared to keep up on your tank maintenance for your fry, I'm not going to suggest breeding. They need water changes every single day. When they're little, it is absolutely imperative for their growth. So microworms and banana worms are kind of the second to third stage of feeding your fry, and that's usually within the first week. Go from the vinegar eels to the microworms within a week's time. At about a week and a half or so, maybe even a week, depending on how fast your fry are growing and depending on how many fry you have, you can actually start introducing them to baby brine shrimp. Baby brine shrimp are literally beta superfood. They are amazing food for your fish, and when they eat them, when the fry eat the brine shrimp, it turns their bellies literally a luminous orange. It's absolutely adorable. It's the cutest thing ever. Now, again, with these, you have to be very careful. Baby brine shrimp are raised in salt water, and beta are freshwater. So you want to make sure that when you're culturing your baby brine shrimp, you have a way to collect your baby brine shrimp to remove the salt from them. Otherwise, quite quickly, you can raise the salt levels in your fry tank and actually kill your fry. I do not recommend that you collect your baby brine shrimp in, say, a cup and then just dump it into your tank. That's just not a good way of doing it. Ideally, what you want to do is get a brine shrimp net and strain the brine shrimp through the net and then put the brine shrimp into the tank that way. And again, keeping up with your water changes, it is absolutely paramount to keep the levels down, keep the tank clean, and make sure that your fry are growing as fast as they can and as cleanly as they can without getting any ammonia burns from decaying food in the tank. Now, these guys are going to eat about 3 meals a day, if not more, depending on the size of your spawn. Generally, 2 to 3 times is sufficient, as long as it's not a huge spawn. If it's a huge spawn, you're probably looking more 4 or 5 times a day. And again, if it's an even bigger spawn, which is known to happen, you've got to increase your feedings. My recommendation for you is feed them little and often. So if you have a fairly decent sized spawn and you put a little bit of food in, add a little bit more food, and don't add more than you think that they can consume, because otherwise obviously it rots and you're back in the same scenario. You got rotten food in your tank and the levels are fluctuating, and these fry are majorly sensitive to any kind of change. I go from the baby brine shrimp, and from there I'll alternate or rotate between baby brine shrimp and grindle worms. And I try to get the smaller grindle worms, and any uneaten grindle worms are easy to suck out because they're big enough to see without getting your fry. And by this point, it should be, the fry should be fairly large in order for you to be able to feed them the grindle worms. Another food that I love to culture and harvest is mosquito larvae. Mosquito larvae, to me, are like the ultimate predatory fish food. Because of the way that they move, it stimulates the fish to actively hunt them really aggressively. And when you've got such a tiny little fish and it's hunting things down like it's a shark, it's hilarious, and it warms my heart every single time I see it happen. So that's another thing, especially in the winter months, you're not going to be able to get that. But there's some other options too, like Daphnia, tubifex worms. Those are another good source of food to use if you can't harvest mosquito larvae. And I can't blame you if you don't want to harvest mosquito larvae, because obviously mosquito larvae comes from mosquitoes and nobody likes mosquitoes. By this kind of point, usually by a month and a half or so, my fry are usually eating like crushed beta pellets as well as the grindle worms or mosquito larvae. And by about 2 months old, I can start offering them the smallest of the bloodworms. Now, I use frozen bloodworms, and again, by about 2 months old, the fish will explore other food options. So you should be able to drop in a couple of pellets of food with your live food, and you'll probably notice that they'll start catching on to eat them. And I actually start that very early, at before a month old. I start putting first bites in with the live food so that they start learning there's plenty of food for everybody. And again, I cannot stress enough, clean your water, clean your tank, and clean the debris off the bottom of the tank. Some of the dry foods you can use is like the Hikari First Bites, the micro wafers, again by Hikari. Bug Bites, I forget who makes Bug Bites. That might even be Hikari also. I don't remember. I don't use Bug Bites, but I do use the Hikari micro wafers and the Hikari First Bites. And the Repashy gel foods. Those are also really good, especially because you can drop a little bit in and they can explore it and nibble at it. You can also start introducing freeze-dried foods or frozen foods. So again, such as Daphnia, tubifex worms, mosquito larvae if you can find it, which I haven't found frozen mosquito larvae yet, but I have found Daphnia bloodworms. By about a month and a half to 2 months old, your fry should be more than capable of accepting a whole wide variety of foods. Definitely, you're absolutely going to need the vinegar eels, the microworms, grindle worms, and baby brine shrimp. Those are the 4 absolute major game players in feeding live foods to your beta. wafers, the first micro wafers, as a pellet food, just to make sure that they are getting everything and that they are transitioning to eating a pellet diet. You kind of want to switch them over from live foods onto a dried food, and then give them the live foods as treats. That's kind of the transition you want to take by the time they're 2-3 months old. I hope this has given you a little bit of an idea on how to feed your fry and the different phases that they go through. And as always, to keep up to date and to see the next episode, like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope this has helped you out. And the best of luck breeding your beta. Bye bye.